Scotland nil, Brazil 3. And Matheus Cunha scored again. Vinicius Jr. scored 2 goals again. Bruno Guimaraes, 2 assists. And we're just seeing some of the Brazilian players just turn up today. Because today was a must-win game. At any cost, you should have won this game. Because now that you have top spot, you're going to be facing Japan in the next round. And then you have a couple of more favorable fixtures in the round of 16 if you were to qualify after this. Now, at this point in time, we're thinking, well, Brazil had no win anyways, because whether they finish first, whether they finish second or third, they were always going to play somebody difficult. But now, out of all the teams you could have got, this is probably the least worst, I guess, considering in the round of 16 you would get a present for getting through against Japan or Netherlands or Sweden. So what we're seeing though is that in the midfield, in the defense, in as a goalkeeper and the attack, there's a little bit of a balance building. And why is this balance building? Well, number one, Rafinha went out for Ryan. Ryan gives you more stability on that right hand side. He gives you more of that Brazilian flair. Cunha up front, he does the defensive work, he does the pressing work, he does the finishing work, the most important thing. And he essentially complements Vinny very well. And then Vinicius has been outstanding in this tournament. For Brazil, the only player we can say has been outstanding all throughout 3 games has been Vinicius. Because in the first game against Morocco, he is the influence. He scored the goal after all. And he's the only one who gave that bright spark in the whole game. And then the second game, of course, Haiti, that was Cunha scoring goals. But Vinicius was such a big threat in that game as well. And then today, 2 goals. You know what? Let's rewrite that. 3 goals that Vinicius scored, because the most contesting point in this whole game was exactly the same thing that you and I are thinking about. Was that second goal valid or not? Now, if you ask me personally, it's a goal. Why is that? Because people are going to say, oh, but then Vinny put his leg right in front of the defender. See, while that may be the case, we're talking about what kind of difference actually warrants that goal being given or not being given. And I would say it was more of a case that Vinicius had his leg kicked into, as in the defender kicked into him. So there's a limit where, number one, Vinicius is kicking into him. Otherwise, the defender is kicking into Vinicius. But I think in this case, Vinicius gets his leg kicked into, which means, if anything, it was a foul on Vinicius overturning this goal completely. And this is the kind of inconsistency we've seen on multiple occasions. In this World Cup, it's actually been pretty decent when it comes to refereeing, when it comes to VAR decisions, barring the one Messi red card, which probably should have been given. We've seen mostly consistent decisions throughout the World Cup, and we've seen that the idea behind making decisions has been pretty good. Now, we can't expect that every day. We can't expect it, because that's just not how it works, because certain teams are going to get certain preferences and certain players are going to get certain preferences, and that we've seen throughout this World Cup tournament. Now, is Vinicius favored by FIFA? Probably not. And that's probably why we saw that one decision is given in one place, another decision is not given. Because if you go on past precedent, that was not a foul to begin with. And Brazil keep getting these unfair decisions against them. I've seen this in the last World Cup. I've seen it in this World Cup. And this whole perpetual cycle just keeps on continuing. It's nothing new, really. And what we're seeing, though, is that on Brazil's side, on Carlo Ancelotti's side, he got it right from the second game. Except I still believe, if you take Paqueta out, you put Cunha as a cam, and then you play Endrick as a striker, I think Brazil have an even more potent attack. Because Paqueta, as good as he is in some moments, when he's bad, it just goes missing. And I think with Endrick, when you have another Maverick in this team, with a Cunha, with a Vinicius, and even with the Ryan, who's probably a supporting player, you have more of a team that wants to take on the big guys. That can say to France, that can say to Spain, to Argentina, that I can turn up to your game and we can cause as much problems as you can, just because we have more of a dynamic front four. And when you have that dynamic front four, the thing is, nobody is a fear for you, because you're like, if Vinicius drops out, I still have Cunha, I still have Endrick, I still have Ryan. If Ryan drops out, we still have Vinicius, Cunha, and Endrick. And if Endrick is not there, then you still have Vinicius, Rafinha, and you still have Vinicius, Cunha, and Ryan. And this is the kind of dynamic front line that you want if you want to win the World Cup, especially with Brazil being not even favorites, not even outside favorites. Fans across the world have been discounting Brazil this time, and me included. But if you want to see something that works out, I think Brazil have a small chance of doing something. And that all depends on how they play their next game. Because whether they get Sweden, whether they get Netherlands or Japan is going to be a difficult game. And if you can overcome that by playing good football, by imposing the game onto them, maybe even getting a 2-3-0 win again, that is when everything changes, the dynamic changes. Now suddenly people are going to respect Brazil more, and maybe because of that you get a favorable round in the round of 16, and then you're through to the quarterfinals. Now before you know it, in the round of 16 and the quarterfinals is a different game. The whole idea behind how teams play changes, because now teams who haven't been there suddenly start panicking because they're like, oh, we're in the quarterfinals, we're just so close to the final. And then in the semifinals is the same thing. If you get a favorable draw in the semifinals or quarterfinals, it's very different to getting it in the round of 32 or in the group stage, because as you further progress in the World Cup, that's when the mentality kicks in. That's when teams are easier to break down, because certain teams are going to be fragile, vulnerable. Even the biggest players are going to be like, it's so close to the World Cup final, we can't mess up, we can't mess up. And then if you have a team like Brazil who's been there, done that, the mentality just kicks in automatically. And with this team, we're talking about that attack being very potent. The midfield is working at the moment. Bruno Guimaraes, guys, wow. If you saw the highlights, if you even saw the game, you saw the two moments that Bruno Guimaraes created. One was a cross, and the second was a dribble, and then the pass to Cunha. Like, he can do almost anything, right? Destroying work, he can do the creation work, and this is what you need in that midfield. Yes, sure, they had a bad game against Morocco, and that could be back to haunt them very soon. If they don't pick up their form by later on in this World Cup, then they can actually get hit on by a team with a proper midfield, because that's what happened in the first game against Morocco. Because Morocco had a pretty decent midfield, they had a dynamic midfield, a midfield that would press you, that could really lock you down, especially with the old legs of Guimaraes and Casemiro. You needed more energy in that midfield, and that could haunt them later on. But if they were to play anything like they played against Scotland and Haiti, though they're not as good as Morocco, they're going to be a big, hard team to play against. Because we're looking at the other teams like Argentina. Argentina probably don't have the quality to beat Brazil, but they probably do have the energy to beat them. Portugal, again, it's a whole mystery. They had a good game last time. They had a bad game the previous time. The game against Colombia is going to tell you everything. And for Spain especially, Spain you're only going to know in the next game, because I think they're going to play Argentina in the round of 32 if they finish second in their group. If that was to ever happen, that is when you know their ceiling. That is when you know how Spain is going to play through this tournament. France is always going to be deadly. You don't even need a midfield, because that attack is just deadly on its own. And having seen all this, now Brazil have qualified as top of their group. Now, all the teams are going to follow. We know who's going to follow where, because most of the big teams are big hitting this time, and they'll probably finish top of their groups. You're going to see some interesting games. That's all I'll say. And in this moment especially, we're looking at this Brazil team being able to do whatever they want. They scored 7 goals in 3 games. And considering the bad start that they had, Vinicius and Cunha have been on fire. 4 goals for Vinicius, 3 for Cunha. And long may this continue, Brazil might actually have an outside chance. What do you guys think? Do you guys think Brazil have an outside chance? Comment that all down below, and I will see you in the next one.